Welcome back to the Right on Crime Podcast. I'm Frank Russo, our Georgia State Director, and I'm joined today by Marilyn Davidson, our State Director in Oklahoma. Marilyn, it's great to see you. I'm excited to chat with you today.
I'm excited to get in the same room as you.
Well, I have to tell you, we love the great state of Oklahoma. The Sooner State's great.
Who doesn't?
You made it a little less further than we did in the playoff this year. I hope you don't take that personally, but it was a down year for our friends in the SEC.
No, it's fine. It's football. You can't take it personal unless it's, Oklahoma versus Texas.
I understand. Well, we'll be seeing you in Athens next year, and we're excited for that. But that's not why we're here today. We're talking a little bit about a new initiative that's prosecutor and law enforcement led that we're seeing in Oklahoma, and we hope here in the Peach State heads our direction. So I'd love to talk to you a little bit more about prosecutor-initiated resentencing.
Yeah, and I'm excited to talk to you, too, because you have a unique background. So you are an attorney, so you have that law background. I am not an attorney. I just like to pretend like I'm one sometimes, And so hearing your unique perspective on how you think this is going to work, in Oklahoma and some of the other states and how it's going to benefit our states as well, it's really exciting.
Well, maybe it'd be most helpful to talk about what it actually is. So I'll give you a little background, and then I'd love to hear your thoughts on how it makes an impact in the criminal justice space. So prosecutor-initiated resentencing takes a little bit different approach than all the other sentencing, reforms, changes. I hate the word reform. We talk about modernization, improving public safety. It takes that approach. So what it is, it's an opportunity for prosecutors themselves to lead in a way where they actually make the decision to review an old case. But they don't just do it themselves. I think what's great about this process is it's collaborative, right? They talk to victims, they talk to law enforcement, they talk to folks involved in the original case. And then if they think this individual deserves that second chance, they all go to court together. They get in front of a judge, because that's how our system should be set up, and it makes out to a final decision that decides whether that person should have a second look at their case and potentially come home early. So it's a lot to it. I kind of gave a lot there, and the not fun part, that's the lawyer part of the job. Would love to get a sense of how you've seen this play out across the country and why it might be important for Oklahoma.
Yeah, so one of the things I love about it is prosecutors get a really bad rap. A lot of times, they have a job that's really tough, and sometimes they have to be the bad guy. Sometimes they get to be the good guy. There are prosecutors who have probably made decisions that were not in the best for public safety. But this allows them to to go back and say, hey, this was not right, what was done. I've been given certain parameters that I can consider. It meets those parameters. So let's see if there's maybe a better way that we can handle this person. I used to work for Department of Corrections. So I would actually get several requests from lawmakers, former prosecutors, who would say, hey, can I come in and I want to meet with XYZ inmate? And more times than not, it would be someone that they had prosecuted. And one time specifically, it was a lawmaker that used to be a prosecutor that said, out of all the people that I sentenced to prisoners, this was the one I regret, the one I know that was not right. At the time, they thought they were doing what's right, but afterwards, hindsight and all that. And so knowing there are those cases out there, there are those cases that maybe at the time it seemed appropriate sentence for the crime that they committed. But several years down the road, when they look at it, they realize that maybe there should be an adjustment, and this provides them an outlet for that to happen. You just look like back in the 90s. You're probably way too young. You probably weren't in high school during the 90s, but the Just Say No, which was really kind of more in the 80s, Just Say No campaigns, and that really went across the country. It was a great effort by, former First Lady Nancy Reagan, and had great purpose behind it. But unfortunately what it led to, especially in Oklahoma, where a lot of people, one specifically we had in our state, got sent to prison for 45 years for simple possession. You look at that now, 2026, that's not a crime we would send someone, 45 years to prison for simple possession. So this just kind of gives them an outlet. They can go back and correct some of those.
Well, and I think the other thing we talk about is it also the profile of those individuals changes over time. There are folks who, need that opportunity to be held accountable and then rebuild their lives, whether it's behind bars or through probation. And so I think this law takes into account the fact that there are not only folks who have rebuilt their lives, not only is there new information or new views on how we should handle public safety, but most importantly, there's an opportunity for these prosecutors, because I love that you said it's such a unique position they're in. I had a chance to represent prosecutors for years across the the country. And folks don't understand that. They think the calling is to put people in jail.
Yeah.
The calling, and maybe this is me going back to my swearing in, is to do justice.
Yeah.
And sometimes justice changes over time, or the facts of the case or the evidence behind it, or sometimes just that individual change. And I think what's so unique and special about this opportunity to pass this type of bills that have happened in other states is to look at these prosecutors as gatekeepers to know enough about it to get involved and make a difference. And I touched on this piece, which is that it's such a collaborative process. Too much of our justice system, and you lived it working in it, it's not conversations that are happening between prosecution, defense counsel, and understandably in some cases, but other times our DOCs aren't talking with those folks. There's no relationship with the victim. And so there's an opportunity, I think, in this whole process that is really mandated by those guardrails for everybody to work together. Do you think that's something that makes sense in Oklahoma? And if so, what's kind of next there?
It definitely does make sense. Do I think that there are just thousands of people sitting in Department of Corrections right now that probably should be resentenced? No, I don't. If we passed this law and 5 people qualified, I would be happy with it, because in my mind, I feel like our justice system needs to be just for everyone. And whether, they are the worst of the worst or just the low level, we need to make sure that we are sentencing appropriately, we're handling cases appropriately. But there always needs to be that, we call them a safety net, sort of something that, we can go back and correct a wrong, because we are admitting that the process is not perfect. No one's perfect. I mean, that's why we need laws like this. No one's perfect. It's why we need our justice system. And corrections was originally created to correct people. I've had people ask me before, well, how long do you need to send someone to prison to change? Well, it depends. Like, you and I probably would just take a couple hours in jail and we would change. There are people that, might need 15 years and it clicks and they change. There's no magic ball that's going to tell us that. So this does allow the prosecutors to say, hey, they've gone to prison, they've gotten their degree, they've done certain volunteer work and things like that, and they've earned their way into having this sentence adjustment. And it's not, each state handles it differently. It's not something where we're just opening it up and saying, anyone who thinks their sentence is not fair, come put your name in the hat, and we'll look at it. No, it's a very thoughtful process of them considering it. And I'm sure, you, in the work that you've done, I'm sure you've met people or seen people or come across cases that, that keep you up at night. That you think, okay, if we were to just handle that a little bit differently, that might be appropriate for something like this as well.
Well, and you hit on 2 of the biggest pieces. One is that, our court systems are already under pressure from a resource standpoint, but so are our Department of Corrections. So if we can right-size the model, that is an opportunity to get it right, not just for the folks who work in the system, but also for the taxpayer who deserves a criminal justice system that fits the needs. But it also creates an opportunity for prosecutors to lead in this space and have the opportunity to, again, not take an influx of, well, everybody wants to get out earlier. Yeah. These are folks who have demonstrated a path to success. And then the other piece that I love that you touched on is, well, this is happening, right? Because if this was just a concept or theory, us conservatives, sure, we like to right-size government, but we also want some evidence behind it. We've seen some successes in very differing jurisdictions. So I know that this law has been implemented or started in places like Utah, Louisiana, Minnesota, quite a different jurisdiction. And what we've seen is that the recidivism rates, which just simply does this person fall back into a life of crime, well, they're a lot better when you have these cases versus, the indiscriminate individual who may have gotten out and not been given the tools to success or not been a part of this process. So I think the exciting part for me is that this law, as it's been implemented, has shown that it also impacts the lives of those coming out of prison. And I've said it all the time. If someone comes out of prison and they don't reoffend, that's one less case. It's one less stress on the system. It's one less arrest. But most importantly, it's one less victim. Yeah. And that's why we do this work. So I'm excited to hear about what might be next in Oklahoma.
Yeah. When Governor Stitt in Oklahoma, his wife, she has a foundation, the Hope Foundation. And when I worked at corrections too, a lot of the things, I would ask questions like, how do you keep everyone, how do you make them behave? How do you, there's certain, they could cause a lot of chaos if they wanted to. How do these people get up every day and find the motivation to go, you're in prison, but you're still getting up and getting your college degree. And one of the individuals giving me a tour was like, it's that hope. They have to remain hopeful that maybe one day they'll be able to get out. Maybe one day they'll get a new privilege or their new something. And I think giving them that hope, giving them that motivation is extremely powerful. And from a public safety standpoint, extremely effective as well. So just having that there and available is really great. I mean, what other, I'm curious if there are other states that have done it and what they've seen positive.
100%. And I think it has to match our values of accountability, but then rehabilitation and redemption. And I don't think there's a better way to do that than have the prosecutor, who in so many cases may have been involved with the first prosecution, but then views it as an opportunity to kind of get back on track for that individual. And to your question, so in places like Utah, it's a little bit different. Utah, everybody's going to have a different approach to this. But Utah has to go through probation and prosecution, right? They've got both the prosecutor initiating things, but their probation department involved. I know in other states like Louisiana and I believe Minnesota, it's a direct conversation between just the prosecutor, the defense counsel, but then their laws mandate a conversation with the other law enforcement involved in the case, as well as those victims, as I've hinted at. So it requires that collaborative approach. And then I think importantly, which I think is going to be valuable in states that are thinking about adopting this, there's still that judicial safeguard, right? So the judge makes a determination based on a series of factors. Has this person turned their life around? Do they have a plan set up for success once they get out? It is a full holistic review, and it's hard. A system where we want to right size, where that everyone's under pressure from caseloads, especially coming out of COVID. But we have to do that individualized review to get this right. And I think what makes PIR so exciting, aside from the fact that it's a new tool in the toolbox of prosecutors, what we've seen from where it's been implemented is that it is holistic and it takes a look at the individual, not just random factors that may or may not successfully risk assess whether someone's going to be successful.
Yeah. And it's really easy to game the system, but through the thoughtful process of what I've read about that other states have done for PIR, it is a process where it would be hard to game the system. It's hard to trick people to make you think, well, I'm going to get up here and I'm going to pretend like I've, reformed myself, when in fact, the opposite is true. So I really like how they've been very thoughtful in putting this together. I like how, most prosecutors are actually really excited about it.
Right.
One I talked to about it was like, it's great. I love it. That the concern was brought up of the time and the staff to do it, but they have to be tough and they have to put on that attitude of being tough. Like they do care, and they do believe in grace. And so it's nice to finally kind of see that side of them.
And maybe selfishly, both as an attorney and one who worked with prosecutors for so many years, it gives the prosecutors the opportunity to share more and shed a light more on the role they play in the justice process that folks don't recognize oftentimes until they have a case in front of them. This is a real opportunity to lift up the profession, but also lift up our system as one that is law enforcement led. So I'm really excited about what it means. And is there anything on the horizon that you think would be a good message for our folks as we kind of take off and let them learn more about the work that we do on Right on Crime?
I think just keep an eye on our states that we're working on. We're working in, in Oklahoma specifically, we have a bill this year that we're going to look at it. We have an amazing author that I'm super excited about, Representative Anthony Moore, who used to be an assistant district attorney. So he understands it. He's been there, very well respected. So just having the possibility of that being another tool we can use just really excites me, and I hope that we're successful in it. But I think just kind of be on the lookout. I think some of our other states we're going to be looking at it as well.
We want to bring it to Georgia too. And again, I love that even at the legislative level, it's law enforcement and prosecutor led. And I'd be remiss, Anthony, remind us that he's also a very good golfer. So
he reminds everyone that he's a good golfer, but it's fine. We love him for that.
Reasons.
But I will say, I'm going to be excited to see Oklahoma beat Georgia in getting this passed first, because we have a saying in Oklahoma when it comes to our BC rates and our, education, thank God for Georgia, we'd be last. So
I wouldn't say
in
that.
In this instance, I think we're going to be first.
And it's dangerous saying it here, but I know Texas is also working on a law just like this, but it looks like Oklahoma and Georgia can beat them past the post, just like we did in football this year.
And school choice. Oklahoma beat Texas and getting school choice passed, so we're fine letting them follow us in what we do.
Well, we're so grateful that they given us the time to work together at Right on Crime. And if you want to learn more about what Right on Crime does, please visit our website at rightOnCrime.org or .com, but also find us on all the different social media handles, whether that's Instagram, Twitter, which is now X, TikTok, or on Facebook. We want to learn more about what you're doing and engage with us on a daily basis. So we look forward to working with you, and thank you for joining us today.